Have you ever trusted someone so much that you didn't even see the knife until it was already buried deep in your back? I did. And it wasn't just any betrayal. It was the kind that sneaks up on you, slow and smiling, dressed as friendship. The kind that doesn't just hurt your feelings, it tries to erase everything you worked for. Hi, I'm Daniel, and for years I believed loyalty was the key to success. Keep your head down, work hard, trust your team. That's how I was raised. That's how I lived. I wasn't flashy, I wasn't the loudest guy in the room, I didn't chase the spotlight. I chased results, numbers that spoke for themselves, relationships that mattered more than titles, integrity that couldn't be shaken, no matter how many new faces came and went. And it was working. At least I thought it was. Until the one person I trusted most, my so-called best friend, taught me the hardest lesson of my life. Sometimes the enemy isn't outside your circle. Sometimes it's the person you'd swear would never hurt you. But here's the thing about betrayal. It's a powerful teacher. And what my friend didn't realize was that by stabbing me in the back, he wasn't ending my career. He was lighting a fire under it. Because I didn't get mad, I didn't explode, I didn't even argue. I watched, I waited, and I planned, quietly, patiently, until the day came when the tables turned, and trust me, they turned hard. And if you've ever felt that kind of betrayal, if you know how it feels to be overlooked, underestimated, or used, then you're exactly who I'm telling this story for. So do me a favor. Hit that like button, drop a comment telling me you're ready to hear the full story, and don't forget to follow for more. Because what you're about to hear isn't just a story. It's a reminder. Never underestimate the quiet ones. For as long as I can remember, I was the guy people counted on but never really noticed. The one who showed up early, stayed late, fixed the problems before they exploded. I wasn't chasing titles or handshakes. I was building something quieter, trust. At Horizon Financial, I had built a reputation for being reliable. Maybe not the loudest, maybe not the flashiest, but when the big clients had complicated issues or the numbers didn't add up, they didn't call the guy with the loudest tie. They called me. I was in my 12th year there. 12 years of loyalty, dedication, and results that spoke louder than any PowerPoint presentation ever could. I didn't care much for the politics. I believed, truly believed, that if you did good work, the rest would take care of itself. I wasn't naive. I knew how corporate games were played. I just thought, foolishly maybe, that by staying out of the mud I'd stay clean. And part of what made it all bearable was having someone who got it. Ethan. We started around the same time. Sat 2 desks apart in that first cramped office, eating bad takeout and complaining about broken printers. We pushed each other to be better, celebrated each other's wins, covered for each other's mistakes. Over time, he wasn't just a colleague. He was a friend. Best friend even. The kind of guy who knew where you kept your emergency stash of candy, who knew when you were having a bad day before you even said a word, the kind of guy you'd back without thinking twice. So when the big promotion came around, a director position, one that had my name practically written all over it, I didn't see him as competition. Why would I? We were supposed to be in this together. But that's the thing about trust. It's a blindfold you tie on yourself, one knot at a time. You don't realize you can't see until it's too late. Before I go on, if you're feeling this, if you've ever been in that place where loyalty felt like a weakness instead of a strength, go ahead and hit that like button. Share this with someone who needs to hear they're not alone. And follow along, because it gets worse before it gets better. Much worse. The director role wasn't just another step up the ladder. It was the step. It was the role that opened doors to the C-suite, the one that came with a seat at the big table and a voice in decisions that actually mattered. And let's be honest, it wasn't just about the title or the pay bump. It was about what it represented. Years of grinding, sacrificing weekends, staying late when no one else would. It was the kind of thing you told your family about with pride. The kind of thing that made all those late nights feel worth it. I had spent years building relationships with our clients, not just handling accounts, but really knowing them. I remembered their kids' names, their wedding anniversaries, the small details that most people forgot once the ink dried on the contract. I wasn't just managing numbers, I was managing trust. And in finance, trust is gold. The announcement about the open director position wasn't a surprise to anyone. The company was growing fast. New branches were opening, And leadership needed someone who understood the old ways but could handle the new pressures. Someone who knew the clients, the systems, the heartbeat of the place. Whispers started almost immediately. Everyone figured it was mine, I'd earned it, I'd paid my dues. And the truth was, I wasn't even campaigning for it. I figured my work spoke louder than any self-promotion ever could. I kept my head down, kept doing what I did best, deliver. Ethan, he joked about it, said he wasn't management material, said he was rooting for me, said all the right things, and maybe that's why I didn't see it coming. Because sometimes the worst betrayal doesn't come from a stranger with a knife. It comes from a friend with a smile. If you've ever worked yourself to the bone only to be overlooked, you know that sick, hollow feeling I'm talking about. If you've ever trusted someone so much you forgot to guard yourself, you're already nodding. And if you're nodding, smash that like button. Leave a comment. Tell me I'm not alone in this. Hit follow, because what happened next still makes my stomach turn when I think about it. Trust me, it's only just beginning. Ethan wasn't the kind of guy you'd peg as ambitious, not in the traditional sense. He wasn't the one talking about 5-year plans or throwing elbows in meetings. He was easygoing, quick with a joke. The guy who made grueling deadlines feel like casual lunch breaks. He had this talent, a real gift, for making people feel comfortable around him, disarming, like he wasn't a threat. Maybe that's what made him dangerous. Where I was meticulous, he was casual. Where I was structured, he was spontaneous. But somehow it worked. We balanced each other out. I respected him for that. Admired it even. We had this unspoken agreement, or at least I thought we did. No matter how high we climbed, we had each other's backs. Always. At least, that's what I believed. Looking back, there were signs. Tiny cracks in the foundation. The way he started staying a little later than usual, not to finish his work, but to help me finish mine. The way he'd casually ask for updates on projects I was leading, things he never used to care about. How he'd sit in on client calls without being invited, always offering to take notes or lend a hand. I didn't think much of it at first. We were a team, right? Helping each other was just what we did. But there was something else too. Little comments he'd drop so subtle they barely registered. Man, they really lean on you for everything. Crazy how you do all this and they don't even notice. Maybe you should slow down a bit. Don't want to burn out before the promotion's official. I thought he was looking out for me. I thought he was being a friend. Turns out he was being a strategist. If you've ever had someone pretend to cheer you on while secretly clearing the path for themselves, you know exactly how deep that betrayal cuts. And if you've ever had a so-called friend sabotage you with a smile, you already know why this story doesn't end with forgiveness. If you're feeling that twist in your gut right now, that mix of anger and recognition, hit that like button. Drop a comment if you've ever been blindsided by someone you trusted. And don't forget to follow, because what Ethan did next, it wasn't just betrayal. It was premeditated. At first it was little things, the kind you shrug off because you don't want to believe your gut is right. Ethan started asking for copies of my presentations, said he wanted to learn from the best. I laughed it off, proud even, flattered that he thought my work was worth studying. I'd send him my slides, my notes, even my draft emails. Sharing wasn't weird. We shared everything. Then there were the meetings I wasn't invited to, meetings I later found out he attended without me. I'd walk past a conference room and catch a glimpse of him inside, laughing with people I usually briefed. I'd ask him about it and he'd just shrug. Nothing important, just some updates, he'd say. Didn't want to waste your time. Right. He also started copying me on fewer emails. The client calls we used to handle together? Suddenly he was leading them solo, and when I'd follow up with the clients they'd tell me, "Oh yeah, Ethan filled us in, said you were slammed." I wasn't slammed. I wasn't even close to slammed, but I trusted him. I told myself he was just helping out, picking up the slack. That's what friends do, right? I didn't realize it yet, but I was being slowly cut out, surgically, methodically, like a magician misdirecting the audience while he pocketed the ace. The worst part? He made me feel grateful for it. If you've ever ignored the signs because you didn't want to believe someone you trusted could turn on you, you know how that denial feels. Heavy, suffocating. It's the weight of loyalty, crushing you from the inside. And if you're still with me, if you've ever looked back and realized the clues were there the whole time, hit that like button. Leave a comment, but let's hear your story. And don't forget to follow, because this This was just the warm-up. The real betrayal was still coming. Trust, when it's real, isn't something you question every day. It's like the ground under your feet, so stable you stop noticing it's even there. That's how it was with Ethan. We had history. Late nights working on impossible deadlines, weekend calls troubleshooting client issues. I was the best man at his wedding. I helped him move into his first house. He was the godfather to my daughter. This wasn't just a work friendship, it was family. So even when the cracks started to show, I filled them in with memories, with loyalty, with excuses. He's just stressed, I thought. The promotion race is getting to everyone. We're all under pressure. I told myself that because the alternative was too painful to consider, that maybe, just maybe, the guy who knew my favorite pizza topping and covered for me when my mum was in the hospital was quietly pushing me off a cliff. There was this one day that sticks with me, like a splinter under the skin. We were sitting in the break room, the place where we used to decompress. Ethan was scrolling through his phone, casual as ever, when he looked up and said, "Man, imagine how different everything would be if you weren't here. You pretty much hold this place together." I laughed, because what else do you do when someone gives you a backhanded compliment that feels a little too sharp? But he wasn't smiling. He was studying me. And now, looking back, I realize he wasn't admiring what I'd built. He was calculating how to take it. Still, I pushed the thought away. This was Ethan, my friend, the guy who once spent an entire night helping me paint my daughter's nursery because I couldn't figure out how to get the stripes straight. You don't suspect people like that. You don't prepare for betrayal wrapped in familiarity. But you should, because when betrayal finally comes, it's not the knife that surprises you. It's the hand that's holding it. If you've ever trusted someone so deeply it blinded you, hit that like button. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. And follow. Because the betrayal, it wasn't just coming, it was already here. When the official email went out announcing that the company would be selecting a new director, my inbox lit up. Congrats in advance, man. Finally, some good news coming your way. Long overdue. Even people I barely talked to were sending me notes. It felt good. Like all the years of quiet grinding were finally about to pay off. Management was tight-lipped about the process. Standard corporate procedure. Keep it fair, keep it competitive. But everyone knew the truth. There was no competition. There was only one name being whispered in the halls, and it was mine. Even Ethan, or so I thought. "You've got this in the bag," he said, clapping me on the back one afternoon as we left a meeting. "They'd be idiots not to pick you." I believed him. I wanted to believe him. I polished my resume, updated my LinkedIn just in case, and started imagining what it would be like. Running my own team, making real decisions, leaving behind the grunt work for something bigger. It wasn't about the money, though let's be real, it didn't hurt. It was about respect, about finally being recognized not just for what I did, but for who I was. I started planning. I thought about the people I'd promote, the systems I'd fix, the culture I'd build, one that valued real loyalty, not just lip service. For once it felt like the world was tilting in my favor. And Ethan? He was there for all of it. The late-night strategy talks, the mock interviews, the casual "you got this" texts. He even offered to review my leadership presentation before I submitted it. If I'd paid closer attention, I would have noticed something odd. His questions weren't about supporting me. They were about studying me, about gathering. But I wasn't paying attention. I was too busy picturing the finish line to notice someone moving the track beneath my feet. If you've ever been so close to something you could taste it, only to have it yanked away, you know the kind of anticipation I'm talking about. Smash that like button if you've ever been there. Comment if you know how hard it is to keep believing. And don't forget to follow, because when the fall finally came, it wasn't just a stumble. It was a free fall. It started with a weird sense of déjà vu. I was sitting in a project meeting, half listening as Ethan gave a presentation to the leadership team. Slides, charts, projections, nothing too fancy. But as he clicked through the deck, something gnawed at the back of my mind. I knew this material. Not just the facts and figures, the structure, the flow, the little phrases he was using, because they were mine, word for word in some places. Ideas I had carefully crafted over years, client engagement strategies, performance metrics, operational models, all laid out neatly in Ethan's voice, with Ethan's name on them. At first I thought I was being paranoid. Maybe we just thought alike after working so closely for so long. Maybe it was a coincidence. But coincidences don't explain how he had my exact framework for rebuilding the client onboarding process. A model I had only ever shared with him in a late-night brainstorming session over cold pizza and half-hearted jokes. Coincidences don't explain how he anticipated every question from the execs, the same questions I had coached him on months before. As I sat there frozen in that too-small chair, watching him ride my work to applause and nods of approval, the realization hit like ice water. He wasn't just borrowing, he was stealing, and he wasn't doing it out of desperation. He was doing it by design. Ethan wasn't the charming sidekick anymore, he was the competition. The worst part wasn't even that he stole my work, it was that he knew exactly what he was doing and smiled at me across the table while he did it. If you've ever felt the sting of someone taking credit for something you poured your heart into, you know the gut punch I'm talking about. It's not just betrayal, it's erasure. A slow, calculated deletion of everything you thought made you you. If this is hitting a nerve, if you've ever watched someone else climb higher on the back of your blood, sweat and tears, smash that like button. Drop a comment if you've been there. And don't forget to follow, because what Ethan did next, it made this betrayal look almost innocent. The announcement came on a Monday. Funny, isn't it? How life-altering news always seems to drop when you're least expecting it. When you're sipping your first coffee, still shaking off the weekend. An email hit my inbox. Subject line, leadership announcement. I clicked, heart pounding, expecting to see my name bolded in the center of some polished corporate memo, but it wasn't there. Instead, there was a glossy photo of Ethan, grinning like a man who just won the lottery without buying a ticket. Effective immediately, Ethan Caldwell has been promoted to Director of Client Strategy, it read. We are excited to see where his leadership and innovative ideas will take us. Innovative ideas, my ideas. I sat there staring at the screen, blinking so hard the words blurred. Surely there was a mistake. A second email coming any minute now explaining it was all a mix-up. But no. I glanced over at Ethan's desk. Empty. Then footsteps behind me. That familiar, easy stride. He clapped a hand on my shoulder, a little too hard, a little too rehearsed. Crazy morning, huh? He said. Couldn't have done it without you. And he smiled. That same smile that used to mean friendship, loyalty, trust, now twisted into something hollow. I mumbled something. Congratulations, maybe. I don't even remember. It was all white noise in my head. The rest of the day passed in a blur. The kind where you watch yourself from the outside, going through the motions, pretending you're fine while something inside you fractures. The congratulations poured in. For him, not me. The emails, the office chatter, the pats on the back. And Ethan? He soaked it all up like a sponge, playing the humble new leader, deflecting praise with false modesty, smiling for the cameras. No one mentioned me. It was like I had never existed. Like all those years of work, the late nights, the sacrifices, had evaporated overnight. But here's the thing about being erased. It doesn't leave you empty. It leaves you hungry. If you've ever been blindsided like that, if you've ever watched someone else walk away with everything you earned, smash that like button. Leave a comment if you've felt that hollow, aching fury. And don't forget to follow, because I didn't lash out. I didn't beg for recognition. I got quiet. And that's when the real work began. That night I sat alone in my apartment, staring at a blank wall. No TV, no music. Just silence, thick, heavy, suffocating. It's funny how betrayal doesn't hit you all at once. It's a slow bleed. At first it's just disbelief, then confusion, then the questions come, and the kind that keep you up at night. How did I not see it? How long had he been planning this? Was I really that blind? I replayed every conversation, every moment we had shared, trying to spot the lies, the cracks, the times when maybe, just maybe, the truth had slipped through and I'd ignored it. But betrayal doesn't announce itself. It hides behind trust. It smiles at you every morning and shares your coffee breaks. It's patient, calculating. I wasn't just mourning the promotion. I was mourning the friendship, mourning the version of me that still believed loyalty was bulletproof. At first there was just numbness, the kind that presses against your chest and makes it hard to breathe. Later came the anger, molten, unfiltered, dangerous. But that night, it was just grief. And yet, somewhere in that grief, a seed was planted. Resolve. Because there are two ways you can react to betrayal. You can crumble under it, or you can let it sharpen you. I chose the latter. If you've ever been there, sitting in that kind of silence, staring down the ruins of something you thought was solid, you'll know exactly what I mean. And if you're still with me, if this story is hitting somewhere close to home, take a second to subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. And do me a favor, comment below and tell me, what city are you watching from? I want to see just how far this story travels. Because what happened next? It wasn't revenge. It was a lesson. One that Ethan never saw coming. The next morning, I did something most people wouldn't expect. I showed up to work on time, wearing the same calm, professional face I always did. No drama, no outbursts, no accusations. Because here's the thing about betrayal. The worst thing you can do is let them see you bleed. So I smiled. I congratulated Ethan in front of everyone, shook his hand, even clapped him on the back like we were still teammates. He grinned back, all teeth and charm, and for a split second I swear he looked relieved, like he thought I was too naive to realize what had happened. But I wasn't naive anymore. I was observant. I started watching everything, who he met with, what documents he accessed, how he managed the projects I used to run. I paid attention to the subtle shifts, the way he passed blame when deadlines slipped, the excuses he fed upper management when clients complained. And I waited. I didn't push back when he reassigned me to less strategic projects. I didn't argue when he took credit for things I had worked on months before. I let him get comfortable, overconfident. Because the thing about people who climb by stepping on others, they get sloppy when they think no one's watching. Meanwhile, I documented, quietly, meticulously, every missed deadline, every client escalation, every spreadsheet and email thread. And I made allies, quietly rebuilding the trust Ethan had carelessly dismantled. A conversation here, a favor there. People who remembered who had really kept things running when no one was looking. I wasn't planning a loud comeback. I was setting a trap. One Ethan would never see until it snapped shut. If you've ever had to bite your tongue, stay silent and play the long game. Hit that like button. Comment below with your story if you know how hard it is to stay patient when every bone in your body screams for justice. And don't forget to subscribe, because trust me, what came next? It was worth every second of the wait. At first, the cracks were small. A late report here, a missed client call there. Minor stuff, the kind of mistakes you could brush off if you had enough goodwill stored up. And Ethan, with his easy charm and confident smile, managed to smooth things over for a while. But charm only takes you so far. Real leadership isn't about swagger. It's about knowing the details, the people, the pulse of the work. All things Ethan never bothered to learn, because for years I had been doing it for him. Now, stripped of that quiet safety net, he was exposed. Deadlines started slipping more often. Key clients, the ones I had nurtured like delicate plants, started getting frustrated. They weren't just names on a spreadsheet to me. They were relationships built on trust, the kind that take years to grow and seconds to destroy. And Ethan? He didn't notice the subtle shifts, the way clients became colder, the way internal teams stopped volunteering for his projects, the way meetings got quieter, more tense. He was too busy celebrating his own success, too busy enjoying the corner office and the bigger paycheck. But I noticed. I watched as he made promises he couldn't keep. Overcommitted resources he didn't understand, ignored warning signs blinking in neon right in front of him, and I waited. Because the thing about being underestimated is it gives you a front row seat to someone else's downfall. They never think to look over their shoulder at the person they stepped on. They're too busy looking up. Ethan thought he was invincible, untouchable. He thought the position made him bulletproof, but all it really did was put a target on his back. And me, I just kept collecting facts, building my case brick by brick, stone by stone. If you know that feeling and the satisfaction of watching karma take the slow, scenic route, hit that like button. Drop a comment with your story if you've ever seen someone's arrogance write checks their talent couldn't cash. And make sure you subscribe, because trust me, the house of cards was about to come crashing down, and I was going to be the one to light the match. While Ethan was busy basking in his borrowed glory, I was busy building my insurance policy. Quietly, patiently. Every misstep he made, I logged it. Every client complaint, every missed deadline, every careless email he fired off without thinking. I had it all. I wasn't just collecting evidence, I was connecting dots, and I wasn't alone. The colleagues who used to come to me for advice started coming back, cautiously at first, whispering their frustrations in hushed tones over coffee or in the hallway between meetings. He's out of his depth. He's making promises we can't keep. I don't think he even reads the contracts before signing off. I listened. I nodded. I kept my head down, and I built alliances. People trust consistency. They trust the one who was there before the chaos, the one who stayed steady when the storm rolled in. Ethan didn't realize it, but every shortcut he took, every blind decision he made, was pushing more people toward me. By the time things started really slipping, missed revenue targets, key clients threatening to walk, I didn't have to push. The ground was crumbling beneath him all on its own. I was just waiting for the right moment to step in, not with anger, not with revenge, with precision. Because here's the truth no one tells you about betrayal. It can break you, or it can sharpen you into something unstoppable. And I chose to sharpen. If you've ever been wronged and stayed quiet, waiting for your moment to rise, you know how hard it is not to react too soon. If you're nodding along right now, smash that like button. Comment below if you've ever played the long game and won. And don't forget to subscribe. Because trust me, the knockout punch? It was coming. And when it landed, it would be permanent. I wasn't just gathering stories and whispers anymore. I was collecting hard evidence, internal memos Ethan had signed without reading, budget approvals that made no sense, client satisfaction reports showing declining numbers, contract amendments missing key clauses, email threads where he promised the impossible, all neatly archived. I wasn't hacking anything. I didn't have to. Everything I needed was out in the open, hiding in plain sight. You see, arrogance has a way of leaving footprints, and Ethan, drunk on his own success, wasn't exactly careful about where he stepped. I had a full dossier before the month was over, organized, time-stamped, bulletproof. But I wasn't finished yet. I started sitting in on meetings, quiet, invisible, taking notes, letting him talk, letting him brag, letting him dig his own grave one shallow promise at a time. I even found a few allies in legal and compliance, people frustrated by how Ethan ignored their warnings. Quietly, privately, they shared concerns, documentation. I didn't gossip. I didn't badmouth him. I didn't need to. I had the receipts. The real beauty of it was how unbothered he was by my presence. He thought he had neutralized me, thought I was just another worker bee, resigned to the background. He didn't see me as a threat anymore. And that was his biggest mistake. Because while he was smiling for photos and updating his LinkedIn with grand announcements, I was preparing the one thing he couldn't talk his way out of, the truth, cold, undeniable, and waiting for the right pair of eyes to see it. If you've ever been underestimated, if you've ever been written off only to come back sharper, stronger, hit that like button. Comment below if you know the power of patience and planning. And don't forget to subscribe, because we're getting close now. The trap was set. All that was left was to wait for him to step right into it. It didn't take long before the cracks turned into full-blown fractures. First, one of our biggest legacy clients, a name that carried serious weight in the industry, threatened to pull their account. Poor communication, missed deadlines, broken promises, all things that had Ethan's fingerprints all over them. Then another client followed, and another. The dominoes were starting to fall, and for the first time even upper management couldn't ignore the smoke rising from the fires Ethan had set. Emergency meetings were called. Quiet investigations launched. HR started poking around, asking polite but pointed questions. Still, Ethan kept smiling, bluffing his way through, blaming the economy, blaming market conditions. Anything but himself. But when numbers start slipping and client names start disappearing, the board gets nervous. And nervous boards don't listen to excuses, they look for answers. That's when they brought in an external auditor. The email went out on a Thursday morning. All departments are required to submit project records, client communications, and leadership assessments for independent review. Translation: we know something's wrong. Now we're going to find out who's responsible. I smiled when I read it. Not a smug, arrogant smile. A quiet, knowing one, because I already had everything they needed. And the best part, I didn't have to volunteer it. I just had to wait for them to ask the right questions and hand them the answers, wrapped up in a neat little bow. If you've ever waited for the moment when truth finally catches up to lies, when patience outlasts pretense, you know the satisfaction I'm talking about. Hit that like button if you've ever seen karma slowly but surely turn the tide. Drop a comment below. Tell me where you're watching from. I want to see how far this message spreads, and make sure you subscribe. Because what happened next? Let's just say, Ethan was about to learn the real meaning of consequences. When the auditors came knocking, they weren't loud. They didn't send a memo in all caps or burst into meetings with accusations. No, they moved quietly, just like I had. Requests for documents, invitations for private interviews, quiet reviews of project histories and client files. And when they got to me, I was ready. I didn't bring bitterness into that meeting. No accusations, no drama, just facts. Organized, chronological, undeniable, emails, memos, financial reports, client feedback logs. Everything Ethan had neglected, mishandled, promised, and failed to deliver. They barely blinked as I laid it all out. No opinions, no finger-pointing, just evidence. Clear, simple, and devastating. I could see it in their faces. The pieces were clicking into place. Ethan's golden boy narrative was starting to crack under the weight of hard proof. It wasn't long after that the ripple effect began. Whispers turned into meetings behind closed doors. His calendar filled with appointments labeled confidential. HR called him in, not for a congratulations, but for a formal review. And me, I kept doing what I always did, showing up, doing the work, keeping quiet, until the day came when Ethan's office door closed behind him and he never walked back out. The official word was that he had resigned to pursue other opportunities. But everyone knew the truth. He had been forced out, not with fireworks, not with headlines, just a quiet, definitive ending to a career built on borrowed time and stolen trust. I didn't gloat. I didn't throw a party, because real revenge, the kind that matters, doesn't need a spotlight. It's knowing you stayed true to yourself while the person who betrayed you crumbled under the weight of their own choices. If you've ever dreamed of seeing justice served without lifting a sword, if you know the quiet satisfaction of letting truth do all the talking, hit that like button. Comment the city you're watching from. I love seeing how many places these stories reach. And don't forget to subscribe, because while this chapter was closing, mine was just getting started. With Ethan gone, the office felt different, lighter. Meetings ran smoother. Clients started coming back, their trust slowly mending under real leadership. Not charm, not empty promises, but consistency and follow-through. And me? I didn't campaign. I didn't hustle for the empty chair he left behind. The board came to me. They offered me the role. Not out of pity, not because there was no one else, but because when the dust settled, the only person still standing was the one who had been doing the real work all along. I accepted, of course. Not for the title, not even for the salary bump, though believe me, it was significant. I accepted because it meant something deeper, that staying true to who you are, even when no one's watching, matters. I didn't have to destroy Ethan. I didn't have to shout or burn bridges. I just had to be patient and let his own actions do what they were always destined to do: collapse. In the end, Ethan became a cautionary tale, a story whispered in office kitchens and after-hours drinks about what happens when you mistake shortcuts for strategy and betrayal for brilliance. Me? I kept building, kept mentoring the junior staff, the way no one had mentored me, kept showing up, doing the work, staying steady when others chased shortcuts. Because real leadership isn't loud. It's the quiet, consistent choice to do the right thing and over, even when no one's clapping. If you've ever been betrayed and thought it would break you, let this be your reminder. It won't. It'll sharpen you. And one day, when you're standing on the other side, you won't need to shout your victory. Your success will be loud enough without you ever saying a word. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button. It helps more people find it. Comment below and tell me what city you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more real stories about betrayal, justice, and the quiet power of getting the last word without ever raising your voice. Because sometimes the best revenge is just surviving better than they ever imagined you could.